Alright, hello everybody. So today I am going to be going over something I kind of get asked a lot about in the comment sections of my videos, and that is, where do you get your Godzilla figures from? I have a bunch of different people ask me like where I got this certain item from, so I'm just going to make one big video so it kind of goes over where I get a lot of the stuff behind me. As Godzilla is primarily Japan based, it's kind of hard to track down stuff here over in America or really anywhere in North America outside of Japan. So today I'm going to go over how I primarily get all my figures. I'm not saying which one's the right way. I'm going to say which ones I get the most from. That way you guys do have some sort of idea of how to get figures for yourself. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so I'm going to go from where I get my figures from the least to the most. Really, the place I probably get my figures from the least, or I dislike the most, is going to be eBay. That might come as a shock because eBay is really a primary used marketplace that's online through America. And the only reason I say don't go to eBay if you can, if the seller is selling through eBay, they have to charge extra in order to cover the fee that is put upon through eBay. So there's a giant eBay fee that eBay takes out from whenever you sell an item. I don't remember what it is. It's too high. Even when I've sold, I have made a lot less money than I thought because of this seller's fee. So generally people have to overcharge to cover that fee, and generally eBay prices in general are just already nuts to begin with. You can find good deals. I'm not saying I haven't found good deals behind me. In fact, I got my 55 not too long ago through eBay. However, it is generally expensive, so if you can, I'd stay away from eBay, but keep an eye out for good deals. You can find them. Especially sometimes Carson will find some stuff with Sofubi. I just tend to not have good luck with X Plus, so that's my personal opinion on eBay. Alright, the next one is going to be Sideshow Collectibles. I don't dislike buying from here, so eBay is really the only one I dislike a little bit. The rest from here on out, I don't really have a preference. The only reason I put Sideshow down here is because Sideshow doesn't have a ton. They occasionally have your X Plus release, just not anywhere compared to the other ones we're going to be going into later. Sideshow will have some X Plus figures in stock and some other select Godzilla stuff. Just keep in mind, it's not going to be in high volume. Again, I have purchased some stuff behind me from there, but it's not in huge quantities. So if you do see stuff at Sideshow Collectibles, go check them out. I'm pretty sure it's a US-based company. A lot of their sales, I'm pretty sure, have to do with Hot Toys and other merchandise. But it is nice and effective because it is coming through the US, so that makes things a little bit easier depending on your situation. It is a good place to look, so keep that in mind. Sideshow Collectibles is another good place to check out. Alright, the next one, and keep in mind, this isn't really like a general order. It's mostly off the top of my head and trying to figure out how much I purchased from each site. It's kind of hard to remember. But next up is going to be Buyee Japan. So Buyee Japan is huge. And it's essentially a proxy. It's a proxy service that will ship stuff out to you, but also their website is bringing you to like the eBay of Japan. It's a whole bunch of different sites put into one, and you can check out all their listings. I don't buy from there a ton because just shipping from Japan can be expensive through used stuff like that. But a lot of my stuff behind me has come from Buyee Japan. A lot of my smaller stuff has, like the Bandai's, stuff like that. It's a really great website. So whenever you're using like the Godzilla store, for example, that's the Japan version, not the US Godzilla store, that's for later. It's going to use Buyee to get your products to you. You can use other third parties, but Buyee is the one that they use specifically. And that's what I've used for all my Bandai's, like I said, and some X Plus behind me. That's actually, I got my 54, like one of the first X Plus I got, my third one. So keep that in mind. The thing is with Buyee, it's a lot like eBay. You're going to have to go and bid and sometimes buy it now, but a lot of the stuff is auctions, so you really have to stay on top of it. But it is a great way to get some deals that you wouldn't find here in the US. Buyee is a great service. I do recommend it highly because you can find a lot of different Godzilla merch on there because it is a Japan-based site, which makes it great. And speaking of what I just said, the Godzilla Store Japan is something I did used to use a lot more. But ever since the Godzilla Store US, which is what we're going to talk about now, I haven't used it as much. So the Godzilla Store has a US and a Japan version. Both are great, but primarily, at least recently, I've been using the US version. The reason I've been using the US version because all the releases I want have been on the US version. So for example, this Gaigan behind me is actually still up now on the US store. And there's been a whole bunch of different X Plus and Bandai releases that have come to the US store. Again, it's going to be a lot easier to get figures from the US if you live in the US. or anywhere in North America. It's just a little bit cheaper, generally, not always. But like I said, I found a lot of stuff on the Godzilla store, US, and they even have Bandai's X Plus, merchandise, everything. I love that place. That is a great website to get Godzilla merchandise from, and it is made it a lot easier for us Godzilla collectors in the US to receive our Godzilla figures, because this stuff in the US was not a thing 10 years ago. It was a lot harder. So Godzilla Store US, that's the next. All right, next up is going to be any sort of pre-order. And what I mean by that is a little hard, is if you're part of the collectors groups, which we will talk about here in a second, once again. What I mean by this is generally whenever I see a figure coming out, I pre-order it. And that is going to be your best way to get figures for the best price. And generally these collectors groups will have links to them. So usually like Rick Toy, there's a North American X Plus now, which has been great. A little controversial. So these are kind of all one thing. So we got like the North American Rick Toy, I'm pretty sure that's a thing. And then whatever it is, the Rick versions come out on that site for the US version, and then also the North American X Plus site. That site has been great so far. I've been pre-ordering a lot of stuff off of there, and it's been, again, really easy. The only problem with that is now that the North American site exists, it is blocked US or continental US from receiving the regular Rick Toy and X Plus site. You can't go to Japan anymore. They just don't allow it. However, I do feel like at first it was kind of an iffy transition. They have really kept up with it now. Generally, the stuff will come out in Japan a few days before, and then they will pre-order it and release it for X Plus. So if you can pre-order something, that is always the best way to do it, because you don't have to pay aftermarket price, and it's going to come to you new, so you shouldn't have any problems. Not saying you won't, because sometimes stuff comes in and it's broken. It just happens. But your chance of getting a better item is way up. And then again, you can get it for retail, and that's the best thing you can do. So check out those sites. There's a whole bunch of different X Plus sites, specifically North America X Plus. Check that out, because they have a lot of stuff up there for pre-orders still. Go check them out if you're trying to get some X Plus. Okay, next is going to be me and Carson's favorite thing. I don't want to speak for him, but I'm pretty sure this is going to be his favorite because he gets most of his figures from this. And that, like I was saying, is going to be your Facebook groups. Now, I'm a part of a bunch of different ones. I'm a part of the Collectors group and the X Plus. There's 2 X Plus groups, Kaiju Collectors, and the other one, put the name somewhere. I can't remember, the names switch in my head all the time. But I have bought most of my figures from Facebook groups. Now, what does that mean? So essentially what happens is everyone's a part of a giant Facebook group. It's collectors talking to collectors. So it's generally not like I want to call them scam resellers, because those are the ones that price gouge everything out the roof. These are collectors trying to sell to collectors. And generally, you can get really good deals on used stuff. And the reason I like this the most, it makes it the easiest it can possibly be to get stuff that isn't made anymore. And that's how I've acquired so much of my collection. I have talked to some great sellers through Facebook groups, and it's just been absolutely amazing. Carson has had great experiences for the most part. With Facebook groups and buying most of his Sofubi. It's just people do not overcharge. They're really fair prices, and you can find stuff all the time. And then the best part too is you can tell people what you want, and you can just make a post about it. And people will sometimes get in contact with you if they want it. Like, for example, I bought 2 figures that I haven't unboxed yet from one of the best sellers I've dealt with, and he actually reached out to me after seeing my collection, and I purchased some items off him. So again, like, that's just perfect. It's the best way to do it. It's by far the way I bought most of my X Plus, and it really is my favorite way of buying Godzilla stuff here in the US. Now, that being said, those are my kind of lists and run-throughs of each one. I'm sure I missed some, and I'm sure there's more that people buy from. These are just my personal experiences buying X Plus. So this is primarily an X Plus / Bandai video. Again, I'm clearly I'm not the biggest Sofubi collector, so I'm not too in touch with that side of the market. So keep in mind, this is Bandai X Plus pretty much strictly. Although with the sites that I mentioned, some of them you can find Sofubi with, so keep that in mind. But generally, those are going to be your easiest ways to buy Godzilla stuff. It can be tricky navigating everything at first when you're first getting into this awesome hobby behind me. And yeah, I hope that helped you guys out, kind of navigating it, because it is confusing, and I do see the comments from time to time that I try my best to tell people. So there you go. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this was helpful and informative, and I will see you guys in the next video. See you next time.